Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome back to the DEX Show. Bit of a historical occasion in the history of the podcast today, and I say that for a couple of reasons. So, a little bit of a history lesson for anybody who's not been with us the entire time that we've Tim and I have been doing the DEX Show. Back in December of 2020, we had our first ever episode, and we welcomed from Forrester Andrew Hewitt, who was the sort of DEX analyst or EUEM digital workplace analyst, whatever it was then, Tim. Yeah. And very was our first ever guest of our first episode. We had Andrew on 2 or 3 or 4 times in the subsequent years before he left Forrester for an unnameable organization. And today, going full circle, as it were, we're delighted to have doing her first ever podcast in the new role of Forrester's official DEX and digital workplace analyst, the wonderful Christy Punch. So a quick welcome to you, Christy. How are you?
Hey, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I'm excited to be on the podcast.
We're really, really happy to have you. And I must come back to my introduction, I'm afraid, Christy, just for a moment, because we have huge news as a podcast, and it feels all the more timely, I suppose, or serendipitous or something, Tim, that this full circle is happening, because anybody who follows you on LinkedIn will already know at this point, or may already know at this point, is you're leaving Nexthink at the end of the month for new pastures, and with that, heartbroken to acknowledge you'll be leaving the DEX Show as our hugely valued and long-term co-host. You can't believe it.
Yeah, I can't. It's even hard to hear it said out loud, Tom. It's been not just 5 years, awesome 5 years on the podcast, but 10 years at Nexthink. And I've told others whether this is healthy or not is for others to decide. But this is not a job. It's not a career. This is in my blood. It's in my DNA. It feels like cutting off a leg. You know, I found this thing called Nexthink back in 2013 when we were in our world of hurt, and became a customer in 2014, and then an employee in 2015. Pedro took a risk in bringing me over, and no looking back. It's been a huge journey. I'm going to miss. And I told you offline, this is probably the hardest thing for me to leave at Nexthink, because you and the group that puts this show on and all the guests.
Oh, mate, just so sad. And we've done over 200 episodes together. I think we could count on. I could count on 1 or 2 hands max the number of episodes we weren't able to actually do together as well. And
scheduling is always tough, right? I just travel so much. It's tough. I would do them from the road. I did one with Andrew on the canals in Amsterdam on my phone. It was
yes, you did. Yes, you did. And look, it's been an incredible 5 years for the show. I should stress the show will continue sans a leg, to use your image, and you're gonna throw down the gauntlet of to us of trying to make sure it doesn't get significantly worse without you, Tim.
No, it won't.
But we have got a couple more episodes to film together, and we will be having a proper Tim Flower send-off at the end of the month, where we'll go into this amazing 5 years we've had you on the show in more detail, and we'll have a lot of fun, and we'll say a proper goodbye. But in the meantime, maybe just have a mention to what your plan is next, Tim, as far as you're able to share it.
Yeah, so I'm going to, I really like to keep these next couple weeks all about Nexthink and kind of celebrating that 10 years and all the different little eco careers along the way. If you, even in your own careers, you look back and people come and go, and you can think about this time period, this era. And so I like to kind of use that time to celebrate that. But starting in February, I'm going to kick off my own gig. The puzzle pieces fell together. I've been trying to talk myself out of it for so long. And I said, you know what, at this point in the career, if I'm going to do it, this is the right time. And I'm going to stay in the DEX world. I'm not going to go to another provider. For those of you who know me, I've been preaching DEX and DEXOps for so long. Operationalizing the technology has to come first, and I'm going to do a consultancy, training, testing, certification platform for DEXOps that's platform independent, platform agnostic, allow practitioners and leaders to certify outside of the boundaries of any given vendor, and then be able to go to any enterprise with that operational certification independent of whatever they may be running. So I'm excited to do it. I will see if it gets legs, see if there's demand. The dozens and dozens, literally multiple, I would probably not say hundreds, but everyone I talk to says there's demand for this, says there's going to be some. So we'll see. I may end up with more business than I know what to do with, or I might be, as I've said to some others, sitting on the couch watching soap operas. We'll see which way it goes.
And
Will I sign up for the to be first to get the certification?
Christy, absolutely. You'll probably be able to help me build it.
And we'd like to pre-book you in as a guest, which will be a happy occasion, Tim. A happy occasion. And as I say, listeners, we will be saying a proper goodbye to the wonderful Tim Flower in the weeks to come. So stick with us for that, as well as news on the future of the show. But Christy, perhaps you can see why it just feels so timely. We booked this quite by accident, as it were, not realizing that. The new replacement of our first guest would be coming on the show for the first time, just as Tim takes leave. So quite remarkable timing. But welcome to the show, and let's begin something about yourself and your own DEX lineage, and I guess your quote unquote real world experiences and engagement with DEX, and how that's kind of led to, and I guess shaped your view in this new role you've taken on.
Yeah, so I have just completed my first 4 months at Forrester. So very new to Forrester in this role. I cover digital workplace and digital employee experience, which, as you can imagine, is like everything in the kitchen sink these days. So many things fall under that. But prior to Forrester, I spent about 20-ish years as a practitioner in digital workplace and digital employee experience roles. So new to a Forrester analyst role, but definitely not new to the DEX space. It's my passion. It's my bread and butter. I love it. And so I'm really excited that now I get to geek out and be a nerd and research and write about it and talk to a lot of different folks at different organizations and help them solve their problems. So really excited about this new role at Forrester.
It's a great organization, and a great area to own, as it were. And like Tim Flower, an expert in DEXOps, or someone with a pointed interest in really researching this, and we've covered DEXOps pretty extensively on the show ourselves. But I wonder if it even, out of interest, what did you think it says about the where the technology is at the moment? But the focus here and elsewhere is so much on that cultural aspect of DEX at the moment.
Yeah, so there's several factors that are kind of contributing to this growing groundswell of a need around operationalizing DEX. So the first being that, kind of a result of the pandemic, procurement of enterprise technology really decentralized. So everybody got a credit card, a company credit card, and could start to buy software and tools because we needed to get everybody online and everybody needed tools to work virtually. Well, fast forward to today, and now there are a lot of tools. Everybody has a SaaS tool. Everybody has an application. And the challenge is that from an experience lens, you have a lot of duplication of capability. You have different UIs you have to navigate, and it's not always integrated or connected. And so it creates this very fragmented experience that's really challenging for employees. And on the business side of that, when you look at all of the investments being made in these tools, it's really hard to measure, are those tools really providing value? And are they providing value not only to employees, but also to the business? And so the ability to measure value of technology, especially digital workplace technology, is really hard to do. We often talk about hours saved and productivity, but like, what does that really mean? And what does that mean in terms of the metrics that are going to matter to the C-suite and are going to really drive business results? The other kind of emergence or trend, I will say, that's really kind of bringing this need around DEXOps to the forefront is the DEX tools and the evolution of the DEX tools and capabilities that are now available. I often tell people that if I had had some of the capabilities that are available today with DEX tools when I was in my career, especially when I led digital workplace strategy at Wells Fargo, man, I would have been a rock star. I mean, to have the unification of data in one place, and then layered on top of that, kind of the AI piece that accelerates the ability to provide really intelligent insights in real time, is just really presenting a new opportunity for organizations to really look at DEX beyond just let's reduce help desk tickets. Because again, from a business sense, okay, we reduce tickets. So then, so what? So now that you have endpoint metrics and you have employee sentiment data in the mix, you're able to get observability data. You could really combine and unify data that traditionally has lived in silos because of organizational barriers. And so having that visibility, that high visibility of the experience end to end, and the ability to look at that in real time, and in some cases, predictive insights, really presents this like new kind of shiny gold object that organizations, if done the right way, can really start to tie experience directly to business metrics. And I think that that's really exciting. But the challenge is that organizations have to be mature enough to leverage these tools in the right way and operationalize them across the business, not just in, a certain IT teams. This really needs to be a cross-functional, very strategic approach. And when done right, can really connect the dots between experience and being able to move the lever on employee experience and really see in real time customer experience and business metrics move as well. And I think that's really exciting.
And I think, Chrissy, for those listening, they're already starting to realize why I commented that you would be able to help write the course material or the certification track, because we have had similar paths in our career history, right? Before Forrester, you obviously lived these organizational issues and challenges firsthand, as did I. What moments, either the good ones or the bad ones, really expose the need to start with operationalizing processes first? And just as a side note, we're calling it DEXOps because operationalization is so difficult for everybody to say. What are the good or bad things that you saw along the way that you said, hey, hang on a minute, we got to operationalize this thing?
Yeah. So, gosh, where do I begin? I, have spent the majority of my career selling the value of experience to internal stakeholders and executives. And it's not an easy task, right? Especially at very large organizations with a lot of legacy technology, a lot of legacy processes, and a lot of legacy culture. For me, one of the moments that I think really surfaced this need was when I was at Wells Fargo. I was looking at a lot of our user experience data, which is very qualitative data. And employees were telling us, like, man, we get a lot of emails and it's noisy and it's distracting. I can't, what's important, what's not important, et cetera. And so that's one set of data, right? And so that was data that our team had collected through surveys or user research studies. And so then it was like, okay, this is a signal. There's something going on here. Let's get to the root cause of this. So then that required our team to go to the email team and get data from them in a report. And of course, that's time stamped. And then, a month later, that data's stale because it's not real time. But we get the data from the email team and we see like where all these emails coming from and doing a lot of work to sort it, do the analysis, et cetera. And then, of course, we recognize, well, a lot of these applications are generating notifications. So what's going on there? So then we go to these platform teams and we try to get their data and reports and talk to them. And then we go to the help desk and get their data. And again, all of this data is growing stale as this process continues. And we're spending hours and hours doing the analysis. And at the end of the day, we find that, very simple configuration changes in some of these platforms would reduce millions of emails in employees' inboxes, allowing the more critical information and action items to be surfaced and not be missed. But the real key to that really got people to get on board and align with kind of our mission to reduce the noise there was being able to show that the missed critical emails, because they were lost in a sea of emails, those missed emails were connected to things like change request approvals for code to go into production that's maybe fixing a security issue or putting something into the hands of a customer. So there's a cost of delay. So that cost of delay metric, that's a business aligned outcome metric. And so being able to connect the dots from experience to this business metric really opened up eyes and was able to build strategic alignment around, okay, let's prioritize this. But this is over like a year, right? Mm-hmm. So again, what excites me about DEX tools is now this data is being unified in one place. You're getting views of it that are very helpful, trending, the ability to forecast, the ability to be predictive. And then the AI insights is surfacing, the analysis in real time. And like I said earlier, like, wow, if only we had had that those years ago. But again, this is where just having those views and having that analysis is one piece of it. But that strategic alignment and bringing together cross-functional teams to leverage that data in the right way and then go back and operationalize it, put it to action is really important. So things like governance is huge piece of DEXOps. And I find that this cross-functional alignment, governance, operationalizing at scale, I hear it. I've experienced it. I hear it from clients at Forrester. It really is a hard nut to crack. And so I think having a framework and having structure around it is really going to help organizations move the needle when it comes to DEX.
As you were talking, the thoughts running through my mind were the traditional way that enterprises respond to the unknown, gather more data, and now the data doesn't correlate. Some of the data is incomplete or missing. We can't draw conclusions. There's no history. It's just point in time. All of that just leads to things like the development of the change advisory board, the CAB, the process, the heavy approval process that goes on top of that, and then those approvals getting lost in email. We actually had an edict: if you make a change in production without an approved change control from the board, you're fired. It was that big a deal because you've heard me say before, everything IT touches breaks. So just trying to corral all the data and the processes, you've got to have, there's a better way to do it. So once an enterprise does the analysis, comes to that enlightenment that this is a necessary part of the ecosystem for them, the next question we get about operations is, okay, where does it live? It's different than anything we do today. Do we need a full-blown reorg? Do we need a dedicated team? If we do, how many people is it? Lots of questions about the mechanics of operationalizing it. But we share your opinion around the digital workplace ownership and DEXOps kind of cutting across those defined silos. How do you see this evolving or becoming reality in a place, and where you started with the complex digital workplace that's everything, including the kitchen sink? So how do you see digital workplace and DEXOps coexisting organizationally?
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenge with DEX ownership is that a lot of organizations feel like it has to live somewhere, right? So a team has to own it. And the challenge is that there's so many functions and teams that play a role in the digital employee experience. I mean, this is how, the phrase, every company is a technology company now, right? Like everybody is playing a role in that digital experience. And so to identify ownership in one place is really, I think, faulty, because it really, again, it creates this organizational silos, and it really prevents that scale and those efficiencies at scale, if you will, from happening. And so, again, it has to be cross-functional. I think the way to go about that is to have those strategic cross-functional, like, governance bodies. But in that, as part of that governance, you identify ownership of whether it's KPIs or key experiences, journeys, whatever the approach that makes sense for the company is. It's really about aligning accountability in that sense versus aligning, okay, IT operations, you own the digital employee experience for this company. I think that's like not the right path. I think it really has to be a shared ownership.
Yeah. What we did was we felt that the governance, the ownership of the platform, the change, the configuration, the management of content and how it operates was owned by desktop engineering, but we then sliced across the silos with virtual teams. So every team in the portfolio had an ownership stake in how DEXOps or DEX was running. And that way you've got kind of a way to scale. You can bring more people into that and more teams into the virtual organization. And you've got some shared accountability. So it scaled out really well. And it didn't require this big, huge, ugly reorg in order to get it work. So,
well, and it's great. That's a great method, because you're, with that shared accountability, you're really shifting that culture to think with that experience first mindset. And no offense to technology folks, I am an engineer by education, so I'm allowed to pick on us, but technology minded folks tend to lead with solution first.
Right.
So you see a lot with AI lately. We gotta get AI. We gotta get AI. So we go buy all these AI tools, and we're like, all right, what problem?
Yeah, it's a solution in search of a problem.
We just spent a lot of money, and now the CEO wants to know what the value is. And so, again, I think, having that shared accountability, you share priorities, you share that everybody understands their role as part of the bigger picture, the bigger experience picture. And I think that it allows the company to think business outcomes first, and, problem statements first versus like, let's just go, buy a lot of technology and then see what we can fix with it.
So one more question, then we can tee up some from Tom, because I know he wants to get into, but this particular one might be a risk, because we could probably talk about this for an hour. So let's see where we go. So this month at Nexthink, we're celebrating a new product capability called Spark. And what Spark does is it brings not only the conversational AI to the masses. It's great to converse. ChatGPT is everybody's best friend now, knows us inside and out. But Spark now takes that conversational AI and makes it operational or actionable. And it allows AI to not only converse with us, but we can actually tell it to go do something, or go find something out for us, or become more a part of. It's almost like talking to the enterprise, right? You're talking to the IT platforms itself. So with a focus now on that advanced agentic AI across the enterprise, reaching out to employees, how does that hyperspeed of agentic AI change the calculus in the DEXOps conversation? Does it?
Yeah, I think, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. I think it amplifies, and really the right word would be accelerates what organizations are able to do. There's that whole debate of, is AI going to replace humans, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really about not replacing humans, but doing the things that I would spend in my career months trying to corral and do, doing those things, so that then the human is able to elevate and do more strategic work, make more informed, smarter decisions, and make those decisions much more quickly. I think it really enables speed. But again, you have to have those guardrails. You have to have the right processes and governance in place, because speed and information is just a part of the full picture.
Sticking with the topic, Christy, as Tim mentioned, it's effectively Spark Month now here at Nexthink. We're celebrating it's also Tim's departure month, which is it's a mixed month basically. But thinking about this this new kind of power of self-service agentic AI, increasingly sophisticated, AI driven. What does that mean in your view for IT's identity and indeed operating model over the next few years? It's ripping up the rule book, right, to a significant degree of what we traditionally think of as proactive or predictive.
Yeah, so I think that again, it shifts IT to start to think and operate more strategically. So, rather than spending a lot of time and resources on individual help desk tickets, now IT can focus on experiences. They can focus on orchestration and automation. They can focus on how do they start to embed things like governance and policy and security across the experiences. So almost, I don't want to say level up, but it allows more bandwidth and time to focus on those things. Addressing tech debt, right? That's like one of the biggest complaints from IT organizations is we have so much tech debt, but we don't have the time and the ability to take care of it. So we're just chipping away at it while we build more. So again, it takes some of the weight off of IT so that they can really start to address those more strategic needs. And then that enables IT to move from we're a run and support organization to now we have a seat at the table of driving business strategy and actually moving the needle when it comes to business outcomes.
And how do you think it is that LLMs really change that balance between what we think of as reactive support and if you will, proactive experience design, and that whole traditional spectrum of reactive to preventative? Where does this sit on there?
Yeah, I think that today we're in the, preventative, proactive, but I think that we are close to predictive, to where a lot of this data we're able to recognize personas that fall outside of just your role, right? Or those traditional persona metrics. We now have behavioral based personas. And because of the intelligence that comes with AI and the unification of this data, and then you also have the ability to look at trends over time and learn from those trends and build up. AI provides that muscle of, okay, over the past year, 2 years, 3 years, however time, these patterns are starting to be recognized. And so based on those patterns, this is probably likely the forecast of what your patterns will be the next 3 years. And wow, like what amazing information to be able to make really smart investment decisions from a technology strategy perspective, that's really going to start to improve those ROI measurements and also just efficiencies at scale, which I think is also a huge need right now from a lot of organizations.
That's such an important thing to to reiterate or bring to the surface, Christy. When we talk about reactive, proactive, preventative, predictive, people are all still in the mindset of break fix. I need to predict if something's going to break. And the concept that you're talking about here is not in the context of break fix. It's predicting what my enterprise will look like down the road if I plan in path A versus path B, and being able to predict how my enterprise is operating, not predicting how many blue screens will happen if I deploy this patch tomorrow. It's such a different strategic conversation that I think is missed by a lot, and part of why I'm really looking forward to the road ahead. I want to talk a bit about that journey and the risk and the reward. So a lot of great concepts we've talked about. Let's talk about the real practical steps that organizations can take to start this movement for themselves. So touch on a couple of what those are, and then what's the risk if those things aren't done?
Yeah. So I think that when you think about DEXOps and all of the things that kind of fall outside of the tool, in some cases, a lot of organizations feel challenged. Like I said, it's really hard to go to a completely different department and go to that senior leader and say, I really need our teams to collaborate to work on XYZ when they're mapped under a totally different executive with different priorities, different budgets, et cetera, et cetera. And so I often tell teams that, start small. I'm a huge fan, regardless of what it is, like pilots, POCs, like start small, make it scrappy. Don't let, perfection get in the way of progress, and try something at a smaller scale to work out the kinks, and prove the value, and then leverage that story to then go share the value and expand and iterate, add another. So in this instance, what I would say is pick a journey, an employee journey, or pick an experience. So the logical one for me is onboarding. Every company has an onboarding process. 90% of them suck. Forrester's was great, by the way. I'll just
Good caveat.
but that's an easy example. It's very cross-functional. It's very heavily tied to business outcomes. So start with onboarding, identify what does that journey look like? What are the touch points along the way? And what teams are involved in that touch points, whether it's a support process or an application or a person, right? And then bring the teams together, or the leaders of those teams together, that have a stake in that end-to-end experience, and start to map out, what are the metrics, what are our targeted outcomes here? What are the metrics of the data that we need, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think starting small allows you to move a lot more quickly and prove out the value before scaling.
And what happens? What's the risk if you don't do that?
So the challenge, if you don't start to go down this path, is that your organizational silos will continue to reinforce experience silos, right? So when we have fragmentation in the organization, it's very easy for that fragmentation to then also be felt, and is felt, in the experience. So employees feel that. Employees don't care if it's HR. They don't care if it's, which IT team it is. Like they have a job to be done. They have a task, the goal, and they want to get from point A to point B. And so breaking down those organizational silos is so important. And if you don't look at those end-to-end experiences and focus on just the platforms or just the solutions or just what your business function cares about, that experience to continue to compound. And then the biggest risk is that, okay, again, these experiences are tied directly to your business metrics and your customer experiences. So you think about a teller in a bank, and if they're, they're helping a customer in the moment, and they're having issues with the computer that they're using, or they can't find the information they need, or whatever the problem is, the employee is feeling the friction and frustrated, but so is the customer. And then you compound that across multiple people and experiences, and then now you've got a business impact. And so I think that that can apply to security and risk. It can apply to so many levers when it comes to the business. So I think not just continuing to operate in silos will continue to keep your experience siloed and impact the business.
And how about the reward? Because it's not just the inverse of the risk, right? Enterprises are adopting not just DEXOps, but they're adopting AI, they're adopting new platforms, they're adopting new mergers and acquisitions, they're adopting even just new devices. There's always change going on. DEXOps will be another change. But what's the benefit of this discipline and that broader mindset in IT service delivery, rather than just looking at it as another tool in the tool belt?
Yeah. So for me, I think it shifts the approach to digital employee experience. Traditionally, it's very much projects and initiatives. We got to upgrade. It's a big initiative, or we want to improve collaboration. It's a big initiative. And it shifts that from these one-time almost like we said, reactive, addressing issues, to embedding embedding DEX and experience as a part of the operational fabric. It's just how we work. So just like companies say, customer focused and customer obsessed, this is employee focused, experience focused. And I think that that's going to be, a huge value. And then from a kind of a more business lens that the C-suites will really latch onto is that you're going to have efficiencies at scale. You're going to reduce cost. You're going to reduce duplication. You're going to have a lot more reuse. You're going to have rationalization of tooling, and it's really going to improve the health of your employee experience, but also the health of your technology ecosystem, so that when you need to accelerate with emerging tech and be more innovative, you've now got a leaner stack. You've got an efficient operations, and you're able to be much more agile from a business sense to respond to whatever happens. If another pandemic, heaven forbid, happens, you'll be ready to respond to that much more quickly because of how you've prepared your operations and your technology stack to address it.
Wonderful stuff, Christy. I was curious, just to round things off a little bit. Like, I was going to ask about, the way your background helps you now in this role to more, if you will, objectively evaluate claims from vendors, market hype. But more broadly, I guess I'm interested in this transition into this very distinct role in the industry in general, what it's been like, what the challenges are, and where you haven't felt equipped for it, I guess.
Yeah. So for me, the way that I approach in this new role at Forrester, the way that I approach kind of my analysis point of view, research, et cetera, because I lived in this space for so long as a practitioner, and I have the war stories and the battle scars and the wins, I, really approach things from, I love this space and I'm very excited about what's possible, so I can see what's on the horizon, but I'm also very grounded in the reality and understanding what organizations, the pressures that they're dealing with and what's actually feasible. And so for me, what I love about being in this role is that I can help organizations see that North Star, but then identify what's the roadmap to get there, what's the realistic roadmap to get to that North Star. So that's kind of my approach, is I see the vision, but I also have felt the reality. So that's where it comes from.
It's really a sensible combination. And Tim, I don't know if you knew this, but obviously, long-time listeners will know that we went out for our first ever episode with Andrew Hewitt's guitar band, and Christy has kindly volunteered to play us out today on the trumpet. So it's
the trumpet, Noah.
Sorry, I jest. Christy has made no such guarantee. But we did want to. I did mean to take a moment to get to know you a bit outside of the role as well, Christy, because I've been enjoying your posting on LinkedIn over Christmas. But we got distracted. We got distracted by our big show news, Christy. So we'll have to have you back on. But delighted to welcome you to the DEX Show for the first and certainly not the last time, and welcome to this role in this amazing space too.
Yeah, no, thank you. And as you can tell, you have to cut me off. You'll probably have to edit this episode a lot because I love to talk about this stuff. So I
love that.
We could do the 24-hour podcast. The first
24.
We should do a marathon. That's a great idea.
Sponsored.
You go get a little sleep
for 24 hours. Okay. Tim's going to leave earlier than planned. That comes up. Well, it was a pleasure to have you on, Christy, and it did feel very meaningful that you could join us for this, this huge day for the show. And Tim, so sad about this news, and we look forward to giving you a proper send-off, a proper goodbye in the coming weeks. So
I appreciate everybody. Listen, I can't tell you get this too, Tom. People come up to you at different places and events, and talk about the show and just kind of want to talk. Hey, remember that episode you talked about music, and they want to share there. And it's that's the part I'm gonna miss. But it will come to fisticuffs if you don't have me back on as a guest. So we'll look at that down the road.
Well, I'm glad you're not leaving the DEX space.
No, not ready for that yet.
People come up to me at shows and they tell me how much they like Tim Flower. I'm not even exaggerating.
That's not true.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, Christy.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Bye.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.